Thabiso Kgatebe is our reporter who is at the accident scene itself and has been for some time now. And Thabiso, I can see a whole lot more people have begun to gather there as the affected families try to, of course, ascertain where their own children are at this stage. What have you been able to figure out so far about what's happened?
What have you been able to figure out so far, Buwa?
All right, at the moment, we are still on the scene. We've just seen the Premier of Gauteng, Panyaza Lusufi.
What a pity. It seems we're having a bit of a difficulty with our technology there, technical gremlins creeping in as we try to bring you the very latest on what we know to have taken place in Vanderbijlpark. These are previous pictures just a short while ago that we received from the from the accident scene itself, where law enforcement authorities had just arrived. Our reporter, Thabiso Kgatebe, I think was about to explain to us that even the Premier of the province may very well had touched down at that scene itself after we saw the MEC in Matome Chiloane rejigging his diary in order to see firsthand what might have happened. We have been able to catch sight of what remains really of the scholar transport vehicle itself, and it is a difficult sight to take in. It's hard to imagine how anybody would have been able to survive what has taken place. That's, I suppose, going to be very cold comfort for the families that are arriving there, holding on to hope amid these many unanswered questions about how something like this could have happened and, of course, ways in which it could have been prevented. We'll re-establish our connection with Thabiso Kgatebe once again, who's at the scene. But earlier on, we spoke to the spokesperson of the Gauteng Education Department in Steve Mabona, who had just received news about what has taken place and really stopped short of giving us an idea of what the cause of this accident might have been. Take a listen.
The preliminary report indicates that it's about 11 learners who died at the scene and 5 were then transported to medical facilities. We will then get more information later as far as the schools that are involved, the ages and the grades of those learners.
Yeah, it's a devastating way, as I was saying to our reporter, to start the first full week of schooling in 2026. It sets a very difficult tone, I imagine, even for the department.
No, definitely. It's quite devastating. As you know, we have been struggling with the online admissions in terms of placements. Focus was there and making sure that we avail infrastructure for our children. But now this is diverting us now to focus on this, and it's quite sad indeed.
Right. Of course, there's also been a lot of work that had been done, Steve, to try raise awareness about safety, especially involving scholar transport. I understand about a week ago there was a campaign led by the Minister of Transport in Barbara Creasy trying to highlight the issue itself. Sadly, once again in Gauteng, we have to deal with a scenario where questions, I imagine, will be raised about the caliber of drivers that scholar transporters are using and whether or not parents can trust that their children are safe when they're being ferried to school using this mode of transport.
It's quite sad indeed, because definitely we want lesser number of children to be transported. Hence, we are improving our schools, making sure that if parents are saying they want English, introduce it in the areas where they stay. If they seek other activities, we try to introduce and curriculum improve, performance of our schools, because we really don't want a lot of learners being transported from, to schools. So we are working with the stakeholders to make sure that those that are ferried, they conform to the rules of the road, the requirements, cars, they go through necessary, inspections, working very closely with the Department of Transport in Gauteng, because the private scholar transport, Department of Public Transport have a responsibility to make sure that all those that are transporting our children, their cars, conform to the rules, as it were.
All right, so that was Steve Mabona who was speaking to us earlier on today. And what you're seeing now are live pictures from the scene of the accident, once again, where it seems some parents are learning for the first time about what might have happened earlier this morning when this accident unfolded. Once again, if you're just joining us, 11 pupils have died, 5 others are in a critical condition after the scholar transport vehicle they were traveling in crashed, we understand, head-on with a truck along the route that you're seeing there on your screen. Thabiso Khatebe, once again, is our reporter on the ground who's been helping us piece together what might have happened. And Thabiso, we're seeing some devastated parents, presumably learning what might have taken place here and wanting to see for themselves what unfolded.
It's true, Andile. Good morning to you once again. Yeah, parents are so emotional here. Unfortunately, police or rather emergency services personnel cannot allow parents to go on scene. They wanted to go on scene and say, we want to see their children. The number that we got, we still on 11 people who died, and 5 were taken to the hospital. 5, including the taxi driver, they were taken to the hospital. But the report that we got again also earlier on is that the truck driver fled the scene immediately, fled immediately after this particular accident. At the moment, we are seeing parents who are very, very angry. They say they want to go on scene. So I'm just going to speak to one or two of them just to hear how do they feel. Parents, how do you feel that police are preventing you to go on scene?
It's very much unfair, my brother, because the people who are involved in this accident are our own kids. Therefore, please just talk to them to allow us to go and identify the bodies. It's extremely hot by now. Ne? Once it's hot, what is actually happening to the body? They are now decomposing. I'm telling you that.
Kapo hospital re eme mona re senya nako ha re tsebe go way forward ticket sa re fitla mo 7 o'clock ne re le mona it's to 11 now re ntse re eme mona ha ona way forward ha ona next a communicate le mang obviously kutlwe le utlwa ka se etsaetseng haholo papa re batla bua le shano ha o tsebe ngwana la ebe o batla go ba bae ho wena o mo bone sa o qetela ha o gone. Some of the parents here saying that they are angry at what police are allowing them to go in of the accident just to see their kids. They don't know if their kids went to the hospital or they don't know their kids are on scene or their kids are dead, because we've just seen for pathologists here going to the scene to take out or rather take the bodies. Unfortunately, Andile, it's emotional scenes here at the R553 road. It's at the Golden Highway, just next to near Vanderbijlpark. What is happening now? So it's 11 people confirmed by police and emergency personnel, people who died, and then 5 taken to the hospital. The driver of the truck has fled the scene immediately after the incident. Preliminary investigations have shown that the taxi driver, the minibus taxi driver, was trying to overtake vehicles in front of him when he collided head-on with this particular truck that you see on scene. Ayanda?
Absolutely. It's just gone 11 o'clock. Live pictures, once again, we're beaming to you from a stretch of the Golden Highway where a devastating accident took place earlier today involving a scholar transport vehicle and a truck. We understand 11 people have so far died. 5 others are wounded, including the driver of the scholar transport vehicle. Thabiso Khatebe is keeping a close eye on the situation for us. And Thabiso, we're going to stay with you and your pictures for as long as we can. The MEC of Education in the province arrived a short while ago. How was he received?
Yes, of course. I didn't hear the question, but it's a cat and mouse between some people are running to the running to the scene, wanting to see their children here on scene, and police again are going to cordon off this particular scene. But the parents are, as I explained earlier on, that parents are so angry, wanting, as you can see, that they are so angry, they are so emotional. They wanted to go to that particular scene
The MEC and also the Premier of Gauteng is with the local authorities here in the Emfuleni local municipality.
Thabisa, I'm hoping you're able to hear us. Are you able to get us a sense of how the MEC of Education was received when he arrived there? Seems Thabiso Radebe is not able to hear us. What a pity. We'll try and re-establish that connection for you to get you a sense once again of how things have unfolded over the past couple of hours. Once again, live pictures we're beaming to you not far from the scene of the accident where sadly these 11 pupils died. We understand on impact. 5 others are now in a critical condition. And of course, still so many unanswered questions with families now gathering there to at the very least see for themselves what might have happened. You heard there from a really concerned parent a short while ago who said that at the very least, if they were able to have sight of the vehicle itself, perhaps they would have been able to have their final moments with their children who may very well have been alive at the time when authorities had started cordoning off this particular site. It really is a devastating start to the week, the first full week of the academic year in 2026. The Premier of the province, we understand, is there. I say that under correction. But the MEC of Education in Matome Chiloane, I know for a fact, has arrived and may very well have now received some kind of briefing from police about what they know so far before, I imagine, releasing the bodies of these pupils to their parents and their guardians who, as I mentioned, are really distraught at this time as they try to ascertain for themselves what might have happened. As all of this is unfolding, it raises really ancient old questions, shall we say, about what it will take to finally ensure that scholar transport safety at the very least is improved in the country. There are chronic and, dare I say, systemic issues that have really plagued this particular sector for years now. And this is becoming an all too familiar scene, given just how many similar accidents we dealt with as a province and as a country in the year gone by. And if the South African Human Rights Commission's findings are anything to go by in the Northwest, we know that there are serious interventions that are needed urgently in order to curb what is now seemingly a trend insofar as these accidents are concerned. I mean, in the Northwest, the Human Rights Commission has essentially given the local or the provincial government there about 60 days to submit a progress report in order to deal with the failures that they've identified in their own work and to also implement consequence management measures in order to find those responsible for a lack of oversight at the very least accountable. In 90 days, the government there has been ordered, or directed, I should say, to establish functional and complaint centers that will ensure some level of anonymity in order to guard against victimization. In other words, to allow whistleblowers to come forward without being victimized. And in 90 days, the department has also been ordered to clear outstanding payment backlogs to service providers who we understand at a moment's notice will just not arrive to fetch children and ferry them to school because they haven't been paid by the department. None of these are new findings. The question, of course, is what will it take to finally make sure that there's some kind of action in order to ensure that scholar transport around the country, not only in Gauteng, operates as it should. Now, as I mentioned a short while ago, the Education MEC in Matome Chiloane, I understand, is currently at the scene, now being told that he's anticipated to give some kind of briefing to get us a sense of what is likely to unfold in the coming moments, perhaps days and weeks, as they respond as a department to what's actually taking place. In fact, Matome Chiloane may have well started that briefing. I'm just going to check if we have those pictures. All right, we don't have the pictures of Matome Chiloane, who I understand has already started that briefing, but these are pictures on the other side of the scene where, as you can see, there are inconsolable parents who are really desperate to get closer at the very least to the scene itself, or in fact to the crash site, to get a sense of what might have happened. Police trying their best to manage the situation. I understand what might be taking place there, of course, is that the first responders might need to comb through the scene to, at the very least, collect evidence for any investigation that might unfold on the other side of this. And the worry might be that if there are people who are allowed close enough, they may very well interrupt or interfere with that evidence. I wonder if we can just step in for you for a while to just take in what these officers are saying.
Before.
Yes, it's the police Sergeant Mufokeng, his Commissioner Mufokeng from the local police station, talking to the parents, trying to explain to the parents that they are still investigating here on the scene, and then after that the parents will be allowed. At the moment, what we see, where I'm standing, I've just moved away from my video journalist here. What I can see is that jaws of life is being used to sort of cut that particular minibus taxi, because we are told that the kids, unfortunately, they are just on that particular taxi, so they are trying to use the jaws of life to cut that particular taxi. At the moment, these parents are saying that they want to identify their children's bodies, hence they are fighting, hence they are so emotional about this particular scene. I'm just going back to the parents just to find out their complaints.
Aba kopani ntho rona tlamela re di etse bona tse re batlang go di kopa ha ba batla no tlamela re tloa dikolo rona ga bona bana ba rona ba bolale rona o thusa ma se se zala go se from 7 ha o tsibe ngwana o ga itse o etsala ha o tsibe go spetlela ka po mona o eme ma
fitla se me fitla nini so go 7 ismile la lento le yabo nini matata ayikho lento yabo isebenzi kanjalo kanti nathi siyawazi siyofuna bona basebetsa ne bontate bana ba kentseng di-short pen ba emeng ka tlasa difate bona ba etsang mosebetsi wa bona ke imane ska ha ba eme mo ba tshwere matso ba pokotetse ba bile matso ka morao mosebetsi wa bona ke eng, because batswadi ke banana monana ha ba dumelle ba kene mara batho ba sena molemo ba eme ka mo, so phaphanya ya batswadi le batho ba emeng mo ke eng.
You're saying you want to see your children?
Funa ukubona abantwana bethu la, funa ukubona abantwana la, funa ukubona abantwana bangatshela ukuthi siwe kunene thini sebeshuthiwe ama-public. That's true. Asifuni impi thina, sifuna ukubona abantwana, sazi ukuthi kumele senzeni, asina direction khona manje makasikhona la kusini. Hayi khona.
Yes, that's the outcry here. They say that they just want children on that particular scene. And also, while we're still waiting with the parents here, we've just seen Ayanda, we've just seen another Baki from the pathologist services passing through to take those bodies. As I said earlier on, but those fire brigade personnel, they just don't want us to see what is happening there, because that particular minibus taxi is being cut so that the children can be taken out of that particular minibus taxi that was involved in an accident this morning.
There are a number of moving parts, but I understand the MEC is also there and is currently giving an update. I wonder if you're able to work your way to where the MEC is so we can get a sense of what he's saying.
Golden Highway, these parents are saying that they are going through, they want to see their bodies whilst the police are busy there. Yeah, as you can see, we are just also moving to the scene where the taxi has actually overturned, and on our right hand side we can see that truck that was involved in the accident. Parents are fighting, are clashing with police here, saying that they want to go and identify their bodies. It's dramatic scenes unfolding here on the scene on the R553, where 11 children passed on whilst yes, as you can see, dramatic scenes unfolding here. Ayanda, back with you live with live visuals. Parents seeing their children. Police try to prevent them from passing on.
It's now 14 minutes after 11 o'clock, and these are really difficult scenes to take in. Live pictures we're beaming to you from a stretch of the Golden Highway, where we now know that 11 pupils have sadly passed away after being involved in a devastating scholar transport accident earlier today, and some of the affected families are seeing for the first time the scene itself. And as you can imagine, it's really difficult for them to take in what they have just witnessed. In many respects, of course, this is what nightmares are made of for families this morning who, I imagine, said goodbye to their children for what is meant to be yet another day at school, anticipating they'd be able to see them at the end of the day, only to be confronted by what they now have to take in. The fact that their children have met their untimely passing in this most devastating way. The provincial department in the province, I beg your pardon, the education MEC who represents the provincial government is currently there. I understand that he's given an update where the death toll has now increased to 12. And gosh, at the very least, he's got quite a lot of work to do insofar as reassuring these families that what might have happened here was A, something that could not have been avoided, and B, will not happen again. It is an incredibly difficult way to begin the 2026 academic year. And for many of these parents, life after this will undoubtedly be incredibly different and difficult. We're going to try and stay with what we're seeing on your screen as much as we can, as we also bring you reaction to what's taken place from different stakeholders in the education department. We've heard already from Steve Mabona, who is himself still trying to ascertain what's happened. But let's speak now to Matakanye Matakanya from the National Association of School Governing Body. who joins us now via our video link. And Matakanye Matakanya, it is really difficult to even find the words to describe what some of these families might be going through at the moment.
Ayanda, I don't have words to console myself. I really don't have words to console the parents. I don't have really words to console the society, to console the community, to console the school, to console the classmates. We are deeply, deeply heartfelt condolences to everybody. Not that we reopened schools on Wednesday, it only Thursday and Friday. Then today we get this type of news. It is really disheartening. I really don't have any words to say, but it's just to say, can we really improve? Can we really improve our driving? Can we improve the roadworthiness of our cars? Can we improve anything that has to do with the transport so that our children are safe? I mean, 12 young lives at a go, 12 future South Africans at a go. It is, I want to call upon everybody to say, please let's improve so that our children and everybody is going to be safe when they are traveling on the road of South Africa. It is really, really disheartening. I don't have really words to console anybody in the country at this point. I don't, but I'm just saying, maybe the worst that I can say is just the only way of saving our children and everybody is to improve in driving, with cars that are roadworthy, and ensure that we comply by the law on the road so that we save the life. We can't, as a country, continue losing this young life. We cannot afford that. But I'm saying, be comforted, South Africans. Although we will not bring back, even if I'm trying to comfort you, we will not be able to bring back those children. Those children are gone, but it is responsibility of adults to ensure that our children are safe in this country.
Absolutely. You use the word disheartening, and I think that is a sentiment that will resonate with many people because we've been here before, haven't we? Sadly, we have seen very similar scenes in perhaps the last 5 years. I mean, in Carltonville, July of 2024, a scholar transport accident rocked that community as well. There was, the kind of calls that you're making now. At Wendela Technical High, the year prior, in October, scholar transport, we're told the vehicle lost control, 2 people were killed, 63 others were injured. In another one involving pupils from Mudisele Primary School in Garankuwa, it's in the north of Tshwane. Another scholar transport vehicle also leading to what we're seeing unfolding now along the Golden Highway. So disheartened may very well be the right sentiment. And as we try and make sense of this moment, and I think grief has a way of touching all of us, one has to wonder whether, there is, dare I even say, enough political will to finally look into this sector and address some of the systemic problems that crop up each time there's an accident like this.
Well, I think really there are ways of looking into this systemic way, in the sense that, now, look, some of this scholar transport, they got that service through tenders. Now, this thing of making favors without really ensuring that when you provide a tender to a person, have you really inspected the transport that is being used, whether it is a roadworthy or what, and also the question of the drivers themselves, and not only the scholar transport, but I think it has been shown on the road that this particular car is carrying children, and if it is not showing that there is time that it must show that it's showing, so that people must respect. So that even the legislation must be enforced to say now, if you do this and you see that this type of a transport car is carrying these children and you don't respect it, then it must go to court and on different levels. So I think it is time that we must strengthen legislations around that, so that people must start now respecting. I mean, you can't keep on losing the young life and people looking at the money, because when they look at the tender is a profit, about profit. It's not about life, it's about profit. So we can't lose people because of the profit. So we are saying time is now that legislation must talk to that, to say now, once you get a tender, and that must show exactly that this car is carrying young lives, and if you touch that car, like for instance, when the ambulance comes, you can feel that now you give the ambulance a chance to pass, then this time is now that we must do those things. You can't keep on losing the young lives like this and without consequence management.
Yeah. There have been those repeated calls to crack down on unroadworthy vehicles, to ensure that there isn't overloading. Of course, year in, year out, we hear about, the the Transport Department holding campaigns to push back against reckless driving and ensure that there's driver compliance, etc., etc. I mean, I don't want to jump the gun and make assumptions about what led to this particular accident, but the point I'm trying to make is that the calls that you are making now have been made in the past as well. And again, I do wonder to what extent anything will change in the wake of what we're seeing having had taken place in Vanderbijlpark.
No. What we're saying is that, look, we can rely on the law enforcement. But we have been talking. So hence earlier on I indicated by we improve. I mean, as much as we have law enforcers, then we also have as a society, as communities, improve and respect the laws. If we respect the laws, there will be no need of the law enforcement. And I think that if we improve that situation, I must tell you, we can save a lot of young life, by doing that. So what one is saying is that as much as there's law enforcers on this side, but at the same time, we as communities, as society, try to improve and know that now the road where there are cars is respected, laws are respected, and if those people did respect laws, I don't think we would have lost this type of young lives. But now, because people do not respect some of these laws on the road, the traffic laws and all those, then this is what is happening. Because that transport was driven by a task. And then I don't think the children interfered with the driver. The driver, and there's a driver of other vehicle. Then one of those did not respect the law of the road. So I'm saying, as much as the law enforcers must strengthen compliance, we must. But at the same time, I want to talk to the parents to say, once this car, it seems not being roadworthy, please don't allow your children to get into that car. Because it is true that, I understand, always we've been talking about law enforcement, respect, reckless driving and all that, but the long life is going on. So I must say that parents, communities, let's stand up. We must not allow our children to get into a car that seems not to be roadworthy. And even the driver must know the characteristics of the driver. If the driver we don't know that driver, we don't know driver, we must not allow our children to get into that type of a transport. We mustn't allow that. Time is now, if we want to stop these things, time is now. Whilst they are enforcing that side, but the community must ensure that now we monitor, but the department also must stop giving tenders to people that they don't know for profit's sake. Please, we want to make an appeal that help us. Our young people have done it. I think it's enough. It is enough now. We just have to stop there.
Right, it's just gone 27 minutes after 11 o'clock. Once again, we are beaming live visuals to you from the scene of a devastating accident involving a scholar transport vehicle, where we understand now 12 pupils have died, 4 others are in a critical condition. It's along a stretch of the Golden Highway in Vanderbijlpark, and the exact circumstances surrounding the incident are still unclear at this moment, but there's been an outpouring of grief, devastation and shock for the many families that have been confronted by this really tragic reality affecting their families in an irreversible way. And I should perhaps give a warning to our viewers that these are live pictures, so we aren't able to always regulate what we see. So just a word of caution for you that there may very well be graphic images that emerge from the scene itself. We're still speaking to Matakanye Matakanya, who's joining us via our video link. He is from the National Association of School Governing Bodies, helping us, I suppose, make sense of this moment and ways in which we could prevent a recurrence of what's taken place here. And Matakanya, you and I have spoken at quite some length about the role that the Education Department perhaps can play, traffic officials, but I want to shift focus now to speaking a bit more about what SGBs can do. I mean, have we not arrived at the time where it's time to set minimum safety standards even for private transport operators, and perhaps, I don't know, come up with some kind of register, a mandatory transport register, so that it's possible to hold people accountable for flouting any of the existing regulations?
It is true. It is true that when we craft policies, we must ensure that we look. If we don't have one, then all schools must have a scholar transport policy. How do we, as a school, monitor the transport that our children are using in link with the communities that they come from, in link with the parents as well, so that together as a school, together as the parents, as the community, then we are able to know exactly what type of transport is it, so that then in the policy, then it means that now if that transport is not complying, if the drivers are not complying, then we must be able to sensitize the law enforcers as the department was also able to, and also that policy must talk also to the tenders that the department are giving. So we must know when tenders are issued, we must know who this, because some of this transport, sometimes even those people do not have even transport. Then somebody is going to hire a truck or hire a kumbi or hire for children and all those. So I'm saying the role and responsibility of the school government now is to ensure that now they craft policies that we are able to hold everybody responsible if such things do happen.
I've asked this question to Steve Mabona, as well as a member of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, and I'll pose the same question to you, sir, about whether you reckon it's time for us to also rope in external bodies to look into scholar transport in the province, say the Human Rights Commission, which has already conducted an investigation in the Northwest and found serious failures on the part of government, which is meant to play not only a planning and implementation role, but also an oversight role to prevent something like this from taking place. I mean, is that a move that you would support?
We will really support. As I'm saying, you can hear me, I understand that. Look, when we are saying the school government body must craft policies that relate to all those structures, we must know quickly to say, even if, the school government body will quickly look into that and know and identify the school and show that now, according to the policy, as we are saying. How do we report? How do we investigate? How did this person come into without knowing? Because as I'm saying, when the tenders are allocated, and if it's not a tender, it's a question of parents. Parents, do you allow these children to go into a taxi that is not worthy? But now that policy must talk to everybody. That policy must talk to the parents, must talk to the department, must talk to everybody, must talk to the transport itself and the drivers and all those things. So that when these things do happen, because it really and truly, if we look upon the department and all this thing will just continue. So I think you asked a correct, what will be the role of the school governing bodies? I think the school governing body is a government at that school. So they must govern. Time is now that the school government will govern, so that these things must come to an end. And then so that the school government through its policies must hold everybody accountable. Yes, of course. We allow the Human Rights Commission to come in. I mean, if really our children are put into a taxi that is humanly acceptable, then the human right must come in, because the human right, it means that if then that taxi, it is not humanly, then how do it carry the children? It deprives the children of the right of their education by doing that and all this. So Human Rights Commission and other related chapter 7, chapter 9, they must come into and help us to correct the situation.
All right, Matakanye Matakanya, let me thank you for your time and your reaction. Really appreciate it. Matakanye Matakanya is with the National Association of School Governing Body, helping us digest what is taking place in the Vaal. Once again, live pictures on your screen there of, I suppose, really devastating scenes. Parents, guardians, relatives, reckoning with the impossible, really, the loss of their children in this most devastating way. In the wake of this accident that is now claimed, you understand, 12 lives, 4 other pupils, or 4 other people, I should say, still in a critical condition in hospital, including the driver of the scholar transport vehicle itself. The president has taken note of what's taken place and, in fact, has just released a statement responding to both what has taken place in the Cape Flats at the weekend, where we understand 26 people were killed in a 24-hour period, but has also reflected on this accident on your screen, where 12 pupils have now died. The president, in his statement, saying it's particularly distressing that this incident has taken place on the day that the South African Human Rights Commission has published a report on scholar transport in the Northwest. We, of course, took live pictures of that particular briefing as the Human Rights Commission outlined the systemic failures which it said constitute human rights violations, including the right to education, safety and security, as well as the right to protection from neglect and abuse. In a statement, the president goes on to say that his thoughts are with the families, the teachers, the classmates and friends of these young victims. Here's a direct quote. It says, "Our children are the nation's most precious assets, and we must do all we can, from observing the rules of the road to the quality of service providers appointed to transport scholars in order to protect learners." President Cyril Ramaphosa closing off that statement by saying that national and provincial authorities will provide families and schools with the necessary psychosocial support, I beg your pardon, in the wake of what's taken place there. So word from the president there, who's been moved by what's taken place in the Vaal, after we've learned of this particular accident, which has now claimed 12 lives at the very least, 4 other people in a critical condition. Thabiso Khatebe, once again, our reporter at the scene itself, where Thabiso, there's been an outpouring of grief, devastation and shock as parents catch the first glance, really, of this particular accident scene.
Once more, good morning, Hayanda. We're coming to you live from the R553 here in Vanderbijlpark, where 11 children passed on this morning during a road accident. It was between a minibus taxi and also a truck. Currently, the bodies of children are being taken by the forensics, or rather forensic pathology services from that particular combi. They were trapped actually inside that particular Kumbi that was involved in an accident with a truck. But I'm just going to bring on one of the authority members here, Matthews Mohashani from Scholar Transport, to tell us about this particular, the issues regarding Scholar Transport. Ndate Mohashani, thank you very much for your time. Obviously, you are shocked. Obviously, you are shocked by this particular accident that happened here.
We are shocked, Leonard fraternity, and then we are devastated also. Our aim is to transport our future with the child. Exactly every morning when we board our cars, the main thing is the safety of our learners to and from home. It's really something that we cannot say what it is. We even run short of words to describe what has happened here. We can mention it as a catastrophe. One child lost, it's one too many. We are ambassadors of safety, but what we do, we had engaged ourselves with the office of the MEC, with the PRE, in regards to the Back to School campaign. That's what we were. The most important thing is to do the vetting of our members, so that each and every one of our members, we are sure who is on the road.
This accident here, various issues, including reckless and negligent driving by taxi drivers, especially in the morning.
Yes, that one, probably we can say that, but for now, we are just awaiting the report from the authorities of what has really transpired. For now, we cannot say not exactly it's a negligent. We will await the report from the authorities to notify us what has really transpired. But we are shattered as the Learner Transport Fraternity.
What's been done in terms of education, especially for your drivers who are transporting learners, who are transporting these children in the morning, in terms of speeding on our roads, in terms of reckless and negligent driving in the mornings? What do you do in terms of educating, making those awarenesses?
We are partnering with some of the stakeholders. We companies that are on board who are helping us into monitoring all these movements that our drivers do. Remember, also we are operators, so it becomes difficult for us to monitor them. However, we have a stakeholder whom we have partnered with, who make sure that our are regulated and not regulated, are in a good form to transport kids to and from school. Safety.
There you have it, Ayanda. Mohachane, he's the chairperson of the Scholar Transport municipality, because obviously when this particular accident happened, officers on the road who were supposed to manning this particular cars, manning the cars that are speeding on our roads. Yeah, we've heard earlier on that it's children from various schools in Vanderbijlpark. We're talking about Valhai, we're talking about El Shaddai, are the victims, or rather, who passed on in this particular accident. Emotional scenes, I must say. But I'm going to bring on Tate Khadebe from he's the mayor, executive mayor of the thank you, sir, for your time. This particular accident, we are live on SABC. Obviously, this accident, it must have shocked you, the way it happened, seeing those bodies out there.
Thank you very much, Tabis. You know, any living human being, and seeing what we have just saw and realized, will definitely be touched with that. And what is making things worse, it is because of some of these families that we are seeing here. Some of them, they knew or they were informed through the media, because there are videos that are circulating, you know, in social media showing parents. That is why the research a shock around in here. And we wanted to request our people to refrain from circulating such videos up until all families can be in a position to account for their young ones. But this is a disaster. This is something that has hurt many of us. Even myself, when I saw it, I asked myself, my children are using a scholar transport to school, and one will ask yourself, what if it was in their takes? So these are some of the things that are really hurting to the people. So we are requesting that let us have calm, let us have tolerance, and give space for the law enforcement to do what they can be in a position to do. But in the same vein, I requested, even now, I was speaking to some of the pastors here, that this is one of the roles where they needed to rise up and come in between. We have local radio stations. We requested them to visit and to speak about this, pay homage, condolences, everything. MMC, our MMC, social development, will require counseling. There are certain families, as you can see, some of them, they are still in shock and they need to be counseled and assisted. But this is very painful for the people of the Val.
Let's talk about issues of traffic officials in Gadebe. Seemingly, if there was or there were traffic officials on this particular road, many in these particular cars who are speeding every morning, taking these children to school, we shouldn't be here seeing such things.
When such things happen, there will be a lot of blame games at some point. But one of the things that I'm very much comfortable with, because for me to come from home to work, I travel about 18 to 21 km almost every day. And there are different spots where you'll see traffic officials assisting on scholar patrols and what. So in the morning and in the afternoon, I know that they are stretched up because they need to be at various points. But that on its own does not even say that we must not care about those who are driving and who are speeding. But what we need to enforce. I know that even takes. They also have their own people which they are setting up at different points to look at such. So what we need is to strengthen such things in order to minimize or to mitigate what we have seen happening this morning.
Take us into your confidence in that your traffic officials, other scholar transport especially. I spoke with Ntate Mokhachane now, saying that something must be done in terms of speeding on our roads, talking about reckless and negligent driving on our roads by taxi drivers.
We will always, every time when we get a chance, we will always talk about it. But remember, this has become a national crisis everywhere, we understand the taxi people that they are working on targets, and which is making them not to be tolerant on the road or on the way, But we are also calling unto them that please, safety first. We can rather be late. Like if you follow what has happened, from what we've been happening, we heard this has happened around 7:30. So I can tell you that maybe the driver was under pressure, that he was already late, because many of these children at 7:30 they must be at school. And was trying to catch up with time. Unfortunately, it has happened. So our children can rather be late rather than being early in death. So this is what we must encourage to also the officials in the road, in the taxi industries, everywhere. The taxi bosses must continue to speak about this so that we preserve life. Because without such, we will be left, all of us will perish if we don't take care of the road negligence.
Councillor Sipho Gadebe, from his executive mayor of Emfuleni local municipality, talking to us about the road on the road in the mornings. We speak with the MEC for Education. He's also overwhelmed. He's also emotional. He said that he can't speak at the moment with us because he's overwhelmed by emotions. We can see that what currently is happening is that police are still trying to investigate the scene and also trying to take those bodies from minibus taxi to the forensic pathology services. And we're going to try to speak to other people who are here. We were told that the Premier of Gauteng is here, but I haven't seen him so that we can engage him regarding this particular issue of roads on our roads here in Mfuleni. Yeah, some parents you can see are still emotional. Some of them were taken by ambulances to be assisted because they are so emotional, especially after seeing their children on that particular minibus taxi. Ayanda?
Right, Thabiso Kgatebe, taking us through these really devastating scenes that you're watching on your screen now, where there's just an outpouring of shock and grief with many of the families, government officials, and first responders doing their best to manage the situation, whatever that looks like in a context like this. But at 13 minutes towards 12 o'clock, if you've just joined us, we've been watching this developing story coming out of the Vaal, where 12, we understand, pupils have now died, and 4 other people are still in a critical condition after a scholar transport vehicle crashed, we understand, with a bus. And there was a head-on collision, we're told, but not much else known about the exact circumstances leading to that incident. Some of the families were initially kept at a safe distance from the scene itself, but it seemed they overwhelmed authorities at some stage and made it through the barricade where they were able to see firsthand what might have happened in the early hours of this morning. We're told around 7:30 as these children were being ferried to school. And since then, there has barely been a dry eye in and around the vicinity of this accident, given just how devastating we're told the situation is. Thabiso Kgatebe is our reporter who's also informed us that it seems some of the children's bodies are still trapped in the wreckage, and some of their parents were actually able to see that firsthand. And it explains their reaction, which we saw here on screen, as of course, they took in what happened. Thabiso, I understand, is still engaging some people at the scene itself. Let's continue to listen in.
Hospital with serious injuries, and parents are still there, some of them emotional, overwhelmed by emotion, especially looking at the bodies of their children.